There are moments in politics that feel small on the surface, but quietly tell you everything about the direction of a country. And in this case, it wasn't a policy announcement, a cabinet meeting, or a groundbreaking ceremony. It was a single question from a reporter, and the way Mark Carney shut it down without blinking. The room fell silent. Cameras zoomed in, and suddenly, the entire debate around Canada's future energy strategy shifted. Because this wasn't just a question about a project. It was a challenge to Canada's sovereignty, its ownership, and its new role in the world. A reporter pushed Carney with a bold accusation that Canada was prioritizing a US-owned LNG project built with Korean and Chinese steel. It was the kind of question designed to corner a leader. But instead of shrinking back, Carney gave an answer that hinted at something much bigger happening beneath the surface. A second wave of national infrastructure, a trillion-dollar strategy, and a quiet political transformation already underway. What he didn't say spoke even louder, and what he revealed changed everything. Because behind that brief exchange lies a story of power, pressure, ownership, and a new Canada emerging faster than anyone expected. The press conference was supposed to be routine, announce updates, answer a few predictable questions, shake hands, and move on. But the moment the reporter asked why Canada was prioritizing an American-owned project, the atmosphere shifted. Suddenly, you could feel the tension rise like someone had just flipped a switch. The question wasn't just a question. It was a provocation. In an era where Canada and the US have been clashing over tariffs, ownership, and control, the phrasing hit a nerve. Carney paused, adjusted his stance, and delivered a measured but unmistakably firm response. He didn't justify American ownership. He didn't defend foreign involvement. Instead, he broke the project into three pieces: the LNG terminal, the massive PRGT pipeline, and the new transmission line, each with different owners, different partners, different stakes, and most importantly, significant Indigenous ownership at the core. The message was subtle but sharp. Canada isn't prioritizing anyone. It's assembling a multi-part national project with layered governance, shared authority, and strategic leverage. But the reporter wasn't done, and what came next escalated the moment into something much bigger than anyone expected. But that wasn't the whole story. If the first question created sparks, the second one set the entire conversation on fire. Another reporter stepped in with a sharper, harder punch. The terminal would be built in Korea using Korean and Chinese steel. And the owner? Western LNG, American. Then came the real jab. How much taxpayer money are we prepared to invest in a project that is American-owned and foreign-built? This wasn't curiosity. This was an accusation wrapped in a question. It hinted at betrayal, the idea that Canada was handing billions to foreign corporations while Canadian industries struggled, a political landmine. Carney didn't flinch. He didn't take the bait. He redirected back to facts. The PRGT pipeline is Canadian-owned. It has Indigenous partners. Ownership structures differ for each part, and financing decisions will be made only after reviewing complete information, not based on pressure, politics, or noise. It was a calculated refusal to let the narrative become Canada funding US corporations. He refused to let that framing take root. And just when the room thought the clash was over, Carney dropped a number that reframed the entire debate in seconds. And what he revealed next stunned the room. With the tension at its peak, Carney shifted gears from defense to offense. And suddenly, the conversation wasn't about one project. It was about all of them. Canada, he said, was catalyzing $1 trillion in national investment over the next 5 years, a number so big that the entire room froze for a moment. He broke it down, simply. That's $3,500 for every Canadian worker, double what Americans are receiving from their own energy incentives. Each project, by itself, is transformational, but together, they form a new national strategy designed to rebuild Canada's competitiveness across the next generation. This isn't just about LNG. It's about energy corridors connecting provinces, critical mineral routes that feed global tech supply chains, and data sovereignty projects that no one in Ottawa is willing to talk about yet. The message was silent but unmistakable. Canada is no longer reacting to the US, it's building its own map. And suddenly, those earlier questions about foreign steel and American ownership started feeling small, almost outdated. But Carney wasn't done, because the next reporter raised a point that has haunted northern communities for decades. But the concerns coming next were even more personal. A reporter from Terrace spoke up with the frustration people in the north have carried for years. Federal promises always sound good, but they take forever. Communities wait, jobs stall, projects freeze. So how, she asked, will this visit bring real results to towns living far from Ottawa's spotlight? Carney didn't speak like a distant leader. He spoke like someone who understood the weight of delayed hope. He laid out the reality in 3 parts. First, the major project referral isn't symbolic. It guarantees momentum. It shows the project isn't stuck, paused, or politically uncertain. It's moving. Second, money is already flowing. A $140 million infrastructure loan is just one piece of federal financing pushing preparation forward. And third, the biggest impact begins long before construction. When communities know a mega project is actually happening, training programs start, workers return home, local businesses gear up, regional economies wake up. Carney compared this moment to the St. Lawrence Seaway, a long-term investment that transformed national trade for generations. But the next challenge wasn't economic, it was political, and far more delicate. And what came next exposed a deeper conflict inside the province itself. Another reporter raised an uncomfortable tension. The BC Premier and federal government don't always align on energy policy. The province has divided opinions, competing visions, environmental concerns, and political pressure. How would Carney keep everyone at the same table? This time, Carney didn't sidestep. He leaned into cooperative federalism. He described a system where provinces, Ottawa, Indigenous nations, and territories must find alignment without pretending disagreements don't exist. He acknowledged differences between BC and Alberta. He acknowledged debates no one wants to say aloud. Yet he continued returning to the same message. The scale of opportunity in front of Canada is historic. It demands collaboration even when consensus is impossible. His tone suggested something deeper, that Canada is entering an era where national infrastructure cannot be derailed by political noise or fragmented interests. It was part reassurance, part warning. But the toughest question of the day was still waiting, one rooted not in politics but in culture, tradition, and identity. And the answer to that question revealed the tightest balancing act of all. The most delicate moment of the entire press conference arrived when a reporter raised a question many leaders prefer to avoid. The Lakwalams Nation, whose land lies close to Prince Rupert, made it clear they oppose both the LNG terminal and any potential bitumen pipeline connected to it. And their reasoning wasn't rooted in politics, economics, or regulatory filings. It was rooted in Schmaljak's law, in cultural duty, in a belief system far older than the Canadian state itself. Their leadership has said publicly that approving such projects would violate their responsibilities to the land and the water. So the question landed heavily. How does the federal government plan to respect that belief system, while still pushing forward with a project it has clearly prioritized? Carney's tone shifted instantly. All the assertiveness he had displayed earlier softened into something measured and intentional. He didn't contradict the nation's position. He didn't suggest they were mistaken. Instead, he reminded the room that Ottawa doesn't get to override Indigenous law or internal governance simply because a project is economically attractive. He emphasized that the proponents, the companies behind the project, the province of British Columbia, and the federal government All have separate obligations to genuinely engage with the community. Not performative meetings, not symbolic consultations. Real engagement that attempts to understand the cultural and legal meanings behind their stance. He added that accommodations can be explored if they are feasible, but he refused to pretend that such accommodations are simple. His answer revealed the balancing act Canada is walking. Accelerate national energy independence, but not by trampling the rights of nations who have lived on this land for thousands of years. His response didn't close the debate. It opened a space for a conversation Canada still struggles to navigate, one where sovereignty has more than one definition. What happened in that room wasn't just another political exchange. It was a quiet shift, the kind that doesn't trend instantly but slowly rewrites how a country understands its own power. Reporters came expecting technical answers about ownership, steel sourcing, and financing. But Carney turned the conversation into something far larger, a national strategy that stretches far beyond a single LNG project. Every reply he gave, every question he refused to let spiral into drama, pointed to the same underlying truth. Canada is stepping into a new era of self-determination. The debate over American ownership suddenly felt outdated. The outrage about Korean and Chinese steel felt small when placed next to the trillion-dollar transformation already underway. And the careful respect he showed toward Indigenous law revealed that this new era won't be built the old way. Not by force, not by shortcuts, and not by ignoring voices that have been sidelined for generations. Carney didn't raise his voice. He didn't lecture. He didn't reveal every detail of the second wave he hinted at. But the silence between his words carried its own warning. Canada is no longer waiting for approval or direction from anyone else. It's building a future where energy, infrastructure, data, and sovereignty are shaped on its own terms. This wasn't just a press conference. It was a statement of intent. A subtle declaration that the country has already moved into its next chapter. And the real question now, the one no one in that room was brave enough to ask, is what Ottawa is preparing behind the scenes, and how far this second wave will reach when it finally arrives.